us to help us.
It's time to ride into Valhalla. Witness this. This is 2015's Mad Max: Fury Road. Spoiler alert, while I might be giving you my opinion on the film, that's no substitute for watching it yourself. Links to the film are in the description. Max hops into his car and takes off across the desert sea. Suddenly, raiders show up in their war vehicles, and a chase follows that ends in Max tumbling around in the desert sand. He tries to crawl from the wreckage, but he's taken away by the raiders. They cut his hair and shave his face before tattooing a donor warning on his back. Max breaks loose for a second, but after a wild chase through the tunnels of the mountain, he's caught after a flashback distracts him. Suddenly, we see Furiosa preparing to lead a convoy across the dry sea to deliver tanks of water in exchange for gasoline. Before they head out, the leader, Immortan Joe, makes an appearance, and after an inspiring speech, he lets the water flow from the mountain onto the people below. A horde of people rush to the mountain's base to gather as much water as they can before Immortan Joe shuts off the flow again. Once he does, the convoy revs up and heads out. As the convoy makes its way to Gastown, Furiosa veers off of the main road. She plays it off like this is all part of the plan. Then we cut to this. I feel like the shock of this jump was enough to make the entire audience wonder what they're watching. This whole mountain is just one big breeding station for Immortan Joe. From Immortan Joe's viewpoint, he sees that Furiosa is not on the main road anymore, and he rushes away to check his private vault. Once he checks inside, he realizes that Furiosa has taken his perfect breeders. He sends word to the war boys downstairs that they're to suit up and head out. As the drums of war bang, one war boy in particular is struggling. Nux is getting a blood transfusion from Max, and he watches as everyone else rushes by to get their steering wheels. When he finds out that his Lancer is trying to take his car, he refuses to give in, and he suggests tying Max to the front of the car so he can still get his blood while he drives off after Furiosa. Everyone agrees, and they head out to get back Joe's prized breeders. Nothing will get you more pumped up for war than a V8 engine revving under your butt, and this guy playing a flamethrower guitar from a stage on a rig. That's what I was here for, and I couldn't be any more satisfied for now. When Furiosa sees the convoy coming behind them, she assures her guys that this is just a detour, but they're in enemy territory, and the enemy's headed for them now. Suddenly, buzzards appear on both sides of the convoy, and all-out vehicular warfare starts as traps are set off and cars fly from every angle. After watching Furiosa handle every single buzzard, it becomes clear why she was appointed as an Imperator. By the time Nux and the others show up, there's really only about 2 cars left to get rid of. They need more of her.
Witness me! Witness me!
Do you remember everyone yelling "Witness me" as they did something either awesome or stupid? Well, we have this movie to thank for that. I can't even act like I've never yelled that into a mic while gaming though. Once all the enemies are done for, all of Immortan Joe's war boys notice that Furiosa is leading them all into a crazy electrical dust storm. A beautiful spectacle shows off just how deadly an electric storm can be in this post-apocalyptic world. This doesn't stop Nux though. He takes his busted can all the way to Furiosa's passenger side. He pulls all of the gas tubes as he tries to hurry before the fuel catches fire. Max stops Nux from lighting a flare, but Furiosa takes out Nux's car. When Max comes to, the storm's passed, and Max is tied to an unconscious Nux, who Max thinks about shooting off his arm to get free. Next, he tries to eat Nux's hands off, but he stops when he hears the engine from Furiosa's convoy. Max carries Nux all the way over, and he simply gets the water and gets the chain out. Max hijacks the big rig, but he doesn't make it very far since Furiosa has everything all set up for her. After some convincing, Furiosa and the girls get back on the rig, and Max continues holding the gun on Furiosa from the passenger seat. All of a sudden, Nux shows up and hitches a ride in the back section. After working his way to the front, the group of wives ends up overpowering him and hold him out the back door.
Who killed the world?
If you thought you could get through a movie recently without some sort of life lesson being involved, well, you're sadly mistaken. Save the planet. An appropriate one for this film. Ever wanted an apocalypse to just happen though? If you had to choose one post-apocalyptic world from a famous story, which one would it be? As Furiosa drives into the cliffs, we see that the scavengers from this town are just waiting for her to pull in. Max hides with the other brides, and Furiosa gets ready to meet with the scavengers to exchange water for safe passage. When the scavengers pop up, they question the deal they had in place, as they can see Joe's war party driving in from the west. At the same time, one of the pregnant breeders winces as she gets contractions. Furiosa quickly tells Max to go ahead and drive as quickly as possible, and he does just that. The scavengers chase after the rig, but little do they know that Max and the others are already ready for whoever wants to moan and groan. We also see that other members of Immortan Joe's family are there to help bring back his prized breeders, but they aren't too keen on risking everything for a few good breeders. Have you seen the state of the other people that are left in the world? Aside from Furiosa, I haven't really seen any others that can really compare to the others that are in the rig. These perfect breeders are about the only people anyone would want to mate with anyways. The convoy gets stuck behind a wall of rock, but one of Joe's rigs makes it over the rubble. Meanwhile, Max is driving the rig through enemy territory yet again, and he and Furiosa seem to make a wonderful team, as they take down everyone in sight without sustaining a single injury. They're actually so in sync with their weapon handoffs that I'd almost think that they had worked together before. Just when it comes down to Immortan Joe and Max, he gets ready to shoot Max when one of his brides uses herself as a shield to stop him. When Nux realizes that Joe's running out of options, he tells Joe that he'll get on board and handle everything for him. Well, that doesn't go as planned either, because Nux literally gets caught on the walkway and falls over the edge, within 2 seconds of being on the rig. It's actually almost embarrassing when you think about everything else we've seen. I'd have more faith in the flamethrower guitarist than Nux. Joe catches up to the rig and uses a harpoon to cause Max to crash into a bunch of rocks, and this causes one of the prized brides to fall off. You mean to tell me that all they had to do is drop one of the wives in front of Joe's truck and he would just flip it himself? Why didn't they do that earlier? Drop anything, actually. Without hesitation, he flipped that beast. The other brides try to tell Max to turn around to get the girl, but Max tells Furiosa that he saw her go under the wheels. They decide to continue on, and if morale wasn't low enough already, the rig runs out of gas, and one of the girls tries to go back to Joe. The other girls refuse to let her, and they continue on their way. That night, Max mentions that they need someone to keep watch from the rear, and one of the brides volunteers to go. From there, the bride finds Nux curled up, and she comforts him in his time of need. That night, the group comes upon a swamp area, and the rig gets stuck. As the convoy catches up to them, they realize that this is also a minefield, and they stop just outside of the ring of danger. After Joe finds out that the baby the dead bride was carrying is also dead, he becomes enraged, and he allows one of his generals to go into the minefield to retrieve the others that belong to him. Now that's a terrifying shot. Could you imagine just driving around and then shards of glass get shot into your eyes? And every time you blink or move your eye, you just damage them even more. Oh, no thank you. The general gets a bandage wrapped around his eyes, and he fires blindly into the night. He narrowly misses the brides and Max, but Max and Nux are working on a means to get the rig out of the swampland. Eventually, they pull themselves out, and things start to look up for the group. Now the rig needs gas, and Max has a plan for the blind general. He rushes away with a tank of gas, and soon after, he shows up again with a bag full of supplies and weapons. After Nux gets the rig running again, he makes his way through what's left of the marshland. Eventually, day comes, and Max is woken up by nightmares that won't go away. He sees Furiosa is still driving them across the wasteland, and he asks how she knows this land of green is still out there somewhere. She explains that she's seen it before, because she was taken from it when she was younger. The whole world's fallen to ruin, and you mean to tell me that you're drawing hope from a memory of over 30 years ago? That seems to be a big stretch to be risking everything for all of them. Granted, Max is just there to wander like the wanderer that he is, but still, they could literally reach a point where they're completely out of water, gas, and food. For what? A memory? No thank you. Okay, well that's just a trap. That can't be anything more than just a bold-faced trap. Only a fool would think otherwise.
That's bait.
I'm so happy he called that out. If they made them dumb enough to think it was anything other than that, it really would have put a stain on an otherwise fantastic movie. Furiosa warns the others to stay inside, and she gets to call out to the hidden women in the dunes. As soon as the bait woman hears about Furiosa's lineage, she calls out the other women. After explaining her situation to the women, Furiosa motions for the rest of the crew to come out and meet everyone. Furiosa mentions that she can't wait for them to see the green land. But when the women hear about the direction they came from, They explain that the marshland is what's left of it. After hearing this, Furiosa feels defeated. But that night at camp, the other girls draw hope from the old women. They hear stories of what the world was like before the world changed, and they even see the seeds they've saved over the years. Furiosa ends up pulling Max aside to discuss the plan, and she tells them that they plan to ride the motorcycles across the salty plains. Of course, Max says that he'll find his own way, but we all know that he's going to join them in some sort of redemption mission. Almost like clockwork, Max gets a premonition in the morning from his nightmares, and he heads out to catch up with Furiosa. Classic good guy tale. Max explains his idea, which is to turn right back around and take the Citadel. It comes across as a crazy plan, but after thinking it through, they realize that the Citadel has everything they could ever need. Back at Immortan Joe's camp, no one expects the war rig to be driving back by. But when Immortan Joe sees them heading back, he knows exactly what's going on. I will say, everything from here to the end is exactly why anyone watched this movie back in 2015. The epic chase scenes in the movie are all done with as much realism as possible, and CGI was only used in the absolutely necessary spots. This is a pure adrenaline rush. If any of you are video game fans, I'd suggest trying the game if you're a diehard fan. On top of that, the soundtrack alone is enough to pump you up on your everyday commute. Just keep an eye on that speedometer. Immortan Joe and his war party use spike strips and harpoons to get the upper hand on the war rig, but it proves no match for Max and the warrior women. It isn't until war dogs on stilts board the rig that it seems like Joe might be gaining the upper hand. They even pull one of the brides out of the rig and set her in Immortan Joe's monster truck. Eventually, Furiosa grabs Max as he's about to fall off of the rig, and one of Joe's minions reaches in and stabs her before they kick him out. That isn't enough to stop Furiosa though. She manages to get Max onto one of the bigger pursuing vehicles, and Max overthrows everyone inside. Once Max realizes what's happened with Furiosa, he tries to get back to the rig, but one of the stilt boys grab him. I love how even Max seems like a huge fan of the guitar guy. He doesn't kill him, he even hands him his guitar back. It's too perfect. That's exactly what I would do too. Everyone needs a soundtrack to get pumped up to. Meanwhile, Furiosa has Nux Drive, and she boards Immortan Joe's rig, who's gotten in front of them now. She ends up harpooning his face mask apparatus, and she gets it caught in the tires, which ends up killing him as half of his face gets ripped off. Once news of Joe's death reaches the rest of the group, they all make their way over to his vehicle. All of them except Nux. He stays behind to try and make sure the rig makes it to the choke point. And in a blaze of glory, he sacrifices himself to give the others a fighting chance. Now that the group is on a straight shot back to the Citadel, Max tends to Furiosa's wounds as he hooks up a blood transfusion from him to her. He started this story as a blood bag, and now he's ending it as one. He also decides that it's a good point to finally tell people his name. It's only been an hour and 50 minutes, but who's counting? Well, me. That's literally what I do. When the car makes its way back to the Citadel, the lift guard notices that it's not Immortan Joe who's driving anymore. He makes Max reveal himself, and Max uncovers Joe's dead body on the hood of the car. He also shows that Furiosa is alive, and the crowd demands that they be let up at this point. As a celebration, the water's turned back on, and everyone gets to drink their fill as the group rises to the Citadel. When Furiosa looks out into the crowd, she sees that Max is making his way through the crowd to continue his own journey. I'm not even joking about this one. I remember watching it when it came out, and it's been a solid pump-up movie and soundtrack ever since it came out. There's almost nothing bad I can say about this one, and everyone just needs to go watch it right now. Click the link below, then tell me what you thought about it. How does it match up to the original Mad Max films? Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more like this one. Comment what you think I should watch next, and I'll see you in the next video.